come back with a wad of money this thick, and then they get back on the train and go back to Anderson.
Jerry's one of the funniest guys you know.
Oh yeah,
That's a good trip to Chicago. I usually lose that much money in Chicago.
exactly.
Well,
I'll come home with any.
talk about a small world. So, Dad lived down the Michigan side across from Chicago, and Al Capone's house was a mile from Dad's farm. And
Well,
Al Capone had his escape tunnel out of the house, so if they ever got raided, he had a way out. And so when Dad was growing up, they all played in that tunnel
Wow, that's funny.
because they were right off Lake Michigan. The town he grew up in was just off of Lake Michigan.
Wow.
It's still there. The tunnel's still there, but it's been they cemented it up because it was starting to collapse, and kids were still playing in it. 70 years later. It's probably related to probably the same gangsters.
Oh yeah.
Then in the Marine Corps, I went through officer candidate school with the Gambino.
Did you really?
Yeah, that was his uncle, and the story was that the only honorable way not to be in the family was to go into the military. He didn't want to be part of didn't want to be part of the family business, so he was a Marine officer.
That's
Looked
awesome.
just like his uncle.
Really?
Yeah.
Had the nose and everything.
I
Like
remember
Carlo
the drill
Gambino.
instructor goes, Gambino, are you a member of the goddamn Chicago or New York Gambinos? And he goes, yes, platoon sergeant. He goes, oh shit. He was a character. He had stories. He had the accent and everything. God, he was a character. Of course, then he hung out with the kid who was in my OCS class. Remember Gallo Wines?
Yeah.
It was Gallo of the Gallo wine family. Same thing. Didn't want to be in the family business. So. All right. Had enough meetings in the evening.
Boy, last night was a long one.
Did you see her try? I thought she was gonna. I thought she was gonna cold call me.
Yeah.
That was before it got violent.
Was it planning?
Before it got vocal.
What meeting? It was planning commission last night? Yeah.
Scott had somebody flirting with him, I think.
Sally Brown. You know about Sally Brown?
The cooler you were, the better.
Yeah. Oops. Is anybody? Are we up? Is anybody?
Well,
Nobody's there.
No one's on.
Okay.
What was?
Watch the hot mic, man.
Yeah. What was the hot topic last night?
There are a lot of rezoning petitions.
Ah.
She was against one of those.
I didn't understand it because I've been waiting for that to develop, and thank God it will. Because she complained about the flooding in that parcel, which is the old junkyard or Tile in Maine. We're gonna make them put in inlets and pipes and everything, and that water that would come off of that ground into her property that'll no longer happen.
Somebody want to develop that corner?
Yeah, he's already bought it. The guy that built the house there at Madison in Maine, on Maine, it's just down from you.
Uh-huh.
He's gonna 12 lots. Do you remember?
15.
15. But that includes one of them's his.
Rumor has it that whole land is so full of tile and
Oh,
stuff
it's
that
full
you
of
can't dig it.
everything. There's
I
probably
grew
a
up
car
that-
in there.
I grew up in that block, and yes, absolutely, that's true.
There's blocks in there. There's everything in there.
Cars.
Oh, would
So,
surprise me.
Trucks, oil trucks. So he'll only put in slab basement. He won't put in basement. But we have had a lot of drainage there, problems.
Yeah, that Main Street drainage problem issue.
She didn't understand.
Lynn, can you hear us?
She didn't understand what that was about.
Yes, I can.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, guys.
Oh,
Well, it's 6 o'clock. Let's get rolling. Call this the March Redevelopment Commission meeting to order. Let's do a roll call, determine quorum, starting with Dave, please.
Dave Craven's here.
Steve Denny here.
Craig Campbell here.
Mike Hanna here.
Lynn Mellinger here.
Very good, thank you. We have a quorum. Approval of meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
Do we have any comments, changes, suggestions, complaints from the minutes of the last meeting? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve them as written.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion from Steve and a second from Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No opposed. Meeting minutes have been approved. Old business, Aquatic Center. Scott.
The only thing we really have, we went ahead and put it on the agenda, but the only thing is that the committee went over the draft proposal that's gonna go out here shortly. It's in your binder. And that was a group of the stakeholders, which is the school corporation, LaPel, Frankton School Corporation was not there, but the swim club was, Park Board, Town, of course, and one more payer. Well, that's all the ones that'll pay into subsidizing the aquatic center. And then there were some other people that have had a lot of input. Carol Hanna there, so she's been very helpful, by the way. She helped me a couple of times, and then. So the next thing is we'll put it out on the street, probably give them 6 weeks to respond so they can do their due diligence. There's a lot that needs to be done. So at least 6 weeks. If we get feedback they need more time, we'll probably expand it. The only substantial update is that we'll need to go through 2 more summers, 2 more swim seasons. So both pools have got to use their rubber bands and chewing gum to keep operating. Because if we're the work, because as Dave was talking to earlier, the supply materials are just so hard to get that if we make the construction time frame so short, it'll astronomically increase the construction costs. And we don't want that. We want it to be very feasible for somebody to own and operate. So that's all I have on the aquatic center.
How do you put that RFP out? Who's it go to?
So I've got 2 possibilities. There's 2 that I know of. There's a third one, an architect that helped us that designed the fire station. Got their point of contact, and I'll send it to them. And then we'll probably advertise on some websites that are that those types of businesses go to.
Mhm.
Where proposals are put out.
Good.
I'm using our architect for that. We'll help with that. So that's a good question. That's the biggest thing. I hope for 2 responses. 3, if we get anything, if we get 3 or more, then that's, we're on the money. If all we hear is birds chirping once we put it out, then we know we got to come back on something, subsidize it more, or it's just not going to be feasible in this construction environment that we have right now.
It's good that we can be flexible with the timing, though, to
No,
accommodate
yeah.
that.
That went to Donnie and I said, can you get another year out of the park pool? And he said, yeah. And I think the high school pool's in better shape. If this doesn't go through, then each pool will require, the park pool will require about a $5 million rehab, and then high school eventually will need probably another rehab within 5 years, with about the same magnitude, $5 million.
Hmm.
That together is $10 million, which is construction cost estimate at this point is 25 million for an indoor and outdoor aquatic center.
Very good.
Well, I think it'd be great if we can just financially afford it.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty. We're not going to put out any money other than the land and the abatement. The schools will pay. The high school right now, they have to put it through the school board. But the plan is, has he talked to you about it? So 100,000, which puts the school corporation ahead because of their operating costs, and then plus 5 million over 20, spread out over 20 years is 250,000 a year alone. So to get out of the pool business for only 100,000 for 20 years is their money ahead. And then Lapel, the plan is Lapel and Lapel School Corporation would do 60,000, and they get second bite of the apple behind Pendleton, and they're for 15 years. Swim club will guarantee $100 a year or $10 a month for each kid that's with the swim club, plus they'll split the gate on large tournaments or large invitationals, which can have 1,000 kids. You can imagine how much you would make if the owner puts in a cafe and vending area, how much money they would make off of just that. Then the park would be subsidized at 60,000.
So Scott, other than the abatement and the very low rent lease of the
Yes.
10 to 13 acres,
Right.
this is all going to be a privately funded facility?
Right, so we're open to
Okay.
different ownership structures. I'm guessing that's the most likely one. Now, somebody could come by with a build own transfer after so many years, which may be appealing to us. Assume our population has grown substantially in 10 years, and maybe they want to build own transfer. They propose a build own transfer after 10 years, and the only bad thing about that is we're getting a 10-year-old pool, which they have a limited life cycle before you have to do major modifications or rehab. But by then our population could probably afford public ownership.
Tax base would be much better than.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And by then we have 2 high schools. We're like Fishers, right?
Yeah.
So Hamilton Southeastern, now it's Fishers High School.
Makes me sweat a little bit just thinking about it.
Yeah, well, go back to, there used to be an Ingalls High School, Ingalls, Pendleton, and Marble, right?
Huh.
How would Brown's Pool be utilized, or that area, after the 2 years once it closes?
That's up to the park. Initially in the earlier drafts, they could take over the existing site and rehab it. Talking to Brian Williams, he wanted to take that option off the table. So they're left with really 2 options: one, to use our site, lease it, or to go off and find something else at their own cost. But I don't know why anybody would want to do that. Other than if they have, I could imagine to make this work, it would be a big enough, almost like a splash park. Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, the major concern with the school corporation and others is that we need to, so the way it'll work, remember, is that each of those paying entities will have a contract with that owner, right? And so they can work out even more detail. I don't want to put too much detail what they want in the proposal, because I'm not the expert, but these guys that do it for a living, they know what they want, and they may come back and say, I don't know, let's say, they may come back and say, school corporation, 100,000 on that, it's gotta be at least 100,000. Or if we put in there, like a warming pool, they come back and they'd say, no, we need 2 warming pools, which is fine. Yeah, you can have 2 warming pools, of course. This is just our minimum requirements. But then the major concern is, and this is where lawyering comes in, is school corporation commits to 20 years and then it just doesn't work out. They go bankrupt, they walk away, and now the pool, now the high school, we've got this aquatic center, but there's not an operator anymore. And they've filled in their pool at the high school. Now what are they gonna do? So there needs to be some safety things put in there that if things go really bad, for protect us against the worst case scenarios, and we need to have that in there. And that's one reason why we're keeping the land, is that gives us more options and flexibility and tools legally if things go bad.
We had those in place for the wellness center, didn't we? Nothing?
Not much. That's one of the criticisms of this.
Live and learn.
Live and learn.
Under the statement of intent that we have up, it says private and or public-private. So what's that mean?
So it could be a build-own, and they just build-own and operate, all right? It's never a public facility. Or it could be, the other end of the spectrum is build-own transfer. Put an aquatic center aside for a second. That's a lot of times what happens though. This way you get, if you do build-own transfer, you get around your bonding limits. And you can, so you build own transfer, you can do it right away after construction's built, you can do it 5 years later, 10 years later, you can do it that way. And so what's happening is that you're publicly financing, you're paying the mortgage, right? And they make their money off the payments and then a balloon payment probably at the end. Is that a good way to explain it? This meets the RFP meets the state law requirements for as far as I can tell. Meets the state law requirements for build and transfer. Your RFPs have to have certain things in it, and this does. So we'll see what the market brings us, right?
Okay.
That answer your question? Yeah,
Some of
I
it.
think it says the town is open to consider various options for ownership. May vary from private ownership to other combinations of private-public partnerships. And they can put in more than one proposal.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions on this or comments? Anything from you, Lynn?
No questions.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to new business, expansion of the TIF district.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'll just stay here. So, with advice of our attorney and some others, we ought to look at,
Oh, Scott, hold on. Lynn, can you see with the map?
I cannot.
Can Lynn see this somehow?
Oh, wait, here, hold on. Okay, I got it. Yep, I need to do something different on my end. My bad.
Will
will she be able to see this one?
yeah, will she be able to see this one?
Unless I scan it in.
Can you go scan it in? Okay.
We're gonna scan in another one, Lynn. Hang on for a second.
All right, thank you.
So, while she's doing that, so the Brain Trust and some others have suggested that we look at adding to the TIF district. And then the hard copy map that Lynn, we'll get to you here in a second, has some proposed parcels to start the discussion. It's marked off parcels where we think, and at least part of the parcel will not be used for residential because just where it's at. So those are just some that Hannah and I have, you don't have a copy? That Hannah and I have, who's gonna be she's gonna be promoted to planning director here next week, but these are parcels that she and I sat down and identified as possibilities. And so we needed to start the discussion, and then Jeff, if you could go over what procedures are that we would have to follow to add these parcels.
Sure. A redevelopment commission can create economic development areas in which you make a determination by yourselves that certain parcels in the town are in need of development. Now, what does that mean? It means whatever you say it means. It can be in one of the nicest part of town, it can be one of the worst. You just make that determination. Now, I will say politically sometimes that you will get some resistance on that from neighbors, because you do have to notice people within a certain distance of this area you're going to classify as a redevelopment area. What do you mean I'm in need of redevelopment? Or so just be warned, you may get some of that. But there's no evidence whatsoever that affects property values or anything like that. So once you create an economic development area, you are allowed to use, and we'll get to working a little bit backwards, you're allowed to use your TIF funds for the development of that area, whether or not there's a TIF district in that particular economic development area. If there's let's say you create an economic development area without a TIF district, you could still use money you receive from TIF to knock down houses in that economic development area, or purchase a building and offer it to the public. So it makes sense, in my opinion, and other redevelopment commissions I represent, to make your economic development area as broad as possible. Our firm created one in Lapel in 2019, and we named the entire town our economic development area.
Is that what we did?
It doesn't look like it. Is that, you think that?
This map is
Proposed.
well, the white is the proposed, but the existing is the aqua
Yeah,
hash marks.
I think that might be the economic EDAs.
These are the EDAs.
Yeah. So,
But
but that's not the end of the world. It's not that difficult to add your EDA. You pass a resolution, you're saying these parcels or this legal description is part of an economic development area. You have to have a couple public hearings, and then it's in.
So should we, if we're not, the whole town is not TIF eligible for the funds, should that be also one of the things we look at?
It's possible. It's what it does is when you eventually identify parcels that you definitely want to bring into the TIF district, it speeds you up by about a month, because you don't have to go back and say, well, I better add that to the development area first, and then I have to TIF it. Because you cannot put a TIF district except in an area that's you've designated as a economic development area. But once you've done that, let's say for the sake of argument that we designate the entire town of Pendleton as an economic development area. By the way, down the future, keep this in mind, if annex property is ever brought in, you have to affirmatively get that as well. You can't just assume, well, we've already named the whole town. Well, you didn't name the new parcel. So you'd have to name that as an economic development. Every annexation. That's kind of a pain, but worth it eventually. But okay, let's just assume for the sake of argument that the entire town is an economic development area. And we know, for instance, that a old bar in this area is going to be knocked down, and there's going to be a new restaurant put on that place. Just a weird hypothetical. You know that the assessed value of that property is going to go up. That is green light special saying TIF me, TIF me, TIF me, because the town of Pendleton gets all of the tax that exists between the new assessed value and the previous assessed value. All that gap, you get it all. Underneath the old assessment, that money gets split as it currently does. About half to the county, some to the library board, some to the school board, some to the regional waste. It gets split up. That never changes. Nobody loses money in a TIF, but all this goes to the town of Pendleton for any use to serve a TIF district or an economic development area.
So, what are our constraints? One is it can't be a residential area.
You cannot do it on residential areas except in really narrow exceptions, and it's for like low-income housing or housing for older folks.
Okay.
You can do that. But generally, yes, this is business. This is where you get the redevelopment commission really gets to swing its hammer as the business arm of the town of Pendleton. And you will generate these funds. And what you can do, let's say that, I gave that a hypothetical example, but say that that wasn't a done deal and the developer was dipping his toe in the water. Well, I don't know. I don't know if this can work. Any developer that comes down the future, you could say, well, you know, you're going to be paying into this money, this TIF. If you have trouble getting financing, we could pledge whatever TIF there's going to be toward your note. That's a TIF finance thing. It's if a company has trouble or a developer has trouble getting initial financing, TIF financing is a way to make that easier on the developer. That's different than a tax abatement, because a tax abatement is more for operations down the road. But that initial smash where that developer can't get financing, banks love property tax based incentives, which you could provide, because you're pledging a portion of that money. And it could even get to the point where it's if there's enough town involvement, even reduce taxes for the developer. So there's lots of cards you can play. Also, with any of this TIF funding, you could use that as, okay, we've got an economic development area here, we've got, and you do now, you've got a good TIF draw, but most of it is leverage, but that's what you should do. The money that you're receiving, you can say, bank, the Town of Pendleton Redevelopment Commission would like to build a business building up here to the north. Okay, how you want to do it? Well, we'll pledge our TIF draw. Oh, again, that's the gold standard. You can do that. Now you pledge your TIF, but it's it allows you to do all kinds of creative things. You can use that stuff to anything that benefits that economic development area or a TIF district. You can use that money toward.
Let me ask you a question, Joe. So when Scott brought up the question of can we do the whole town, we've expanded the TIF district down state all the way to 67. We did that several years ago. So are we talking picking up another block each way from State Street? Because you get into residential pretty quickly.
No, just the yellow looking parcels are the ones that we identified that we would add at this point.
So
No,
what was your thinking with let's do the whole
I might
town?
not be using the right terms because Jeff has tried to correct me and I still can't get it right.
You want to bring something into the
So you have the
economic
EDA area where the increase in the property tax, right, is the EDA. That's the TIF, but where you spend it is the
get the
EDA.
EDA, correct.
So,
I'm sorry, so you were talking about creating an EDA for the whole town?
yeah,
Okay.
so you spend it in the whole town.
Okay.
Because we're so small right now,
Yeah.
every little thing we do for like improving traffic, floats all the boats in the
Right.
bay. All right, what else do we need to know?
Well-
What's the actual steps we have to go through to do this? You said we could do it in 3 months, or no, that was
To
annexation.
create an EDA, we can do that. It requires 4 meetings. It requires this body, not for the plan commission, the council, back to this body. So
All
2
public,
months,
all public meetings,
all public hearings.
so
Yeah.
you can, the folks will come in and say no.
Yes, yeah, and I would, EDAs, I think you'd be as aggressive as possible, or you're comfortable with on that. TIF districts, once you get to that point, you wanna be a little more cautious, cause the TIF, when you establish it, creates a clock. It's a 20-year clock, and so let's say you,
That's what it was.
yeah, you know, if you know a developer's coming in 3 years, you know it, you've got the commitment. Wait 2, so you get 20 years of it rather than 17 years of it.
I went back through the meeting minutes, RDC meeting minutes in 2018, 2017, looking for, I couldn't remember why we pulled back when we did the expansion of the TIF, and that's why we pulled back.
Absolutely.
The clock was ticking.
Where were you gonna expand to?
More, kind of what you're,
Okay.
probably not the exact same, but there was other
Yeah.
there were other areas that we could have expanded into, but everybody said, be careful with
Yeah.
that, because if you run out of time, you shoot yourself in the foot.
Also, be very cautious of parcels that you know are gonna decline in value, usually through a demolition. We have it in our TIF district, this property's gonna get knocked down. If there's a reduction in the assessed value from the date you TIFed it to the new date, you lose that out of your TIF. It's not all positive, so you can lose yardage, so to speak, if you have the wrong parcels in there. So I think at the very least, you wanna have probably the town manager and the planning department look over every parcel that's in there and make sure, oh yeah, that's the one that had the environmental catastrophe. Well, we better get that out of there before it gets reassessed.
Yeah.
And see, and it's fairly easy to do, but it just requires some vigilance.
Well, is there anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So I'd like to go over these parcels and just talk about the logic, and then, the timeline probably, we'll probably comment on that. So let's just start from left to right. So the parcels over here at 13, just north of the I-69 interchange at exit 14 is, we hear rumors of activity going out there, and the fact that it's right there at the interchange, I'm surprised more activity hasn't happened anyway. The little finger, the only little parcel that touches 13 was before the planning commission last night. There's, one of the problems is there's not utilities out there, which is another red flag for maybe you have a good reason to do a TIF. They're gonna do boat storage on the back half of it. Front half, they're just gonna leave open. But right now there's not even electricity out there, and there's definitely no water. The next one coming to the right, back to the east, is we looked at anything within the town boundaries that has not been TIF that's still on State Road 38. This area probably is the one that we would want to hold off on, because that's very active farm ground, and those little donut holes, those are unincorporated areas, those are not our parcels. Then the next one is based on 67th Street coming down, and the Pendleton half starts at the south part of State Road 132, comes down through the Hunsinger property here, which is, make sure I'm saying this right, which is this parcel right here. So all this is very easily along here could be commercial properties. And if it looks like it's a parcel where the frontage along the state road or the new state road or the new 67th Street, even though the front of it may be commercial but the rest of it residential, we would just, if it became residential, it would just drop out, right?
It would drop out, we'd
Re-
remove it from the TIF.
We would
district.
drop, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, also anything that's along, Old State Road 132. So, we can probably hold off for a little bit on this. But already Anderson is going after federal dollars to construct 67th Street. They're gonna start from the north and head south. And by the way, you know, we don't ever have to connect the two. I know there's some concern about semi-traffic coming down, which I don't think semis would ever come down there except for the interlopers that would happen anyway, because it's just easier for them to hit 69 from the Anderson area versus coming down to Pendleton. But anyway, I think that's definitely that parcel where the 67th comes through. As soon as there's any hint that there's going to be construction of that road, we need to do it. What's next? Okay, and then this area here at 132 as it comes out of town, that could easily have some outlots as the town gets bigger. But I don't think in the next, at least not in the next 5 to 10 years. Okay. Then looking at Pendleton Avenue, the north part, the only reason we marked that is because part of our impact fees will be used to reconstruct that intersection. And so when you do an intersection like that, anytime you have a major intersection, of course, there's potential for retail, that sort of thing. That one we could hold off because it's onto State Road, but NDOT probably is not going to do any construction until we come knocking on their door and say, hey, we've got some money, we need to do this. So we would control the time on that. This is the next one down here by Chestnut Drive, Label, and Huntsville Road. Just because it's frontage off of 67 and it's in the town limits. Okay. And then the last one down here by Angle Road. The logic on that one was that, well, it's near the high school. That probably, we're gonna, I know what it is now. We're gonna improve that interchange at some point, Angle Road 300 South. It's just gonna be necessary because traffic flow for the high school and the middle school, cars can't make that turn, right? And at some point, we're gonna have to improve that intersection. So that was the one parcel that's still within the town limits that we thought we could grab. All right, but we control the timing on that one too. So, probably the only one that we probably ought to move on immediately is probably this one out here, out there at State Road 13. So that's my thoughts. And now it's in your hands.
I have one question.
And by the way, if you have more parcels that you identify, I would hold on to this and think about it for a while. And go, you know, maybe we ought to look at that parcel. But it's mostly the criteria is where we don't think residential will work, and it's along a major transportation route. Yes, sir.
How about that little parcel beside Hunsinger's Field there, that 134 acres? That's a residential property.
Okay, Huntsinger, let me get orientated.
Right there on 132.
Oh, back to this Huntsinger.
Yeah.
Okay, on 132.
Yeah, that little, the little squared off parcel to the right, that's a residential property.
Can you point to it on the, can you hold the map and point to it? Okay. Oh, is that you?
Yes.
Oops.
So,
That's why we have you here.
Yeah. So that's about 22 acres.
Okay, let's take that
And
out,
part of
'cause
that
it's
is-
residential.
Yeah. And I think a little part of that, let me see here. Could be a part of that could be about 10 acres of Brian Brown's
Okay,
property too.
we'll take that off because it's residential.
Yeah.
Because that's just,
I didn't know I was gonna have to move.
no.
Have to go.
You're safe.
Okay,
You're
good,
protected.
thank you.
Come on, Mike, it's for the good of the town, damn it.
I gotta go to another meeting.
So 67th Street, just to make it clear, we'll,
Yeah, where does that come
See, Mike.
through?
yeah, so
Take care.
it connects here and then we'll go up this way, right? So it splits equal distance away from Mike's property and, what's the subdivision here? What's the subdivision?
That's
No,
Fox Chase.
Fox Chase. You know, I told him, I said, this is a good thing, right, Fox Chase, because you don't want 600 West to become that route. So let this happen, so you don't have to worry about 600 West.
Good point. So from Jeff, from what you were saying, if we do this incrementally, every time we do it, it's gonna be about a 4-meeting process.
It will be exactly 4 meetings.
Or maybe even more.
Two of this body, one the plan, one the council.
So we can't, designate start time? It's the clock on.
Well, the EDA doesn't start a clock, so we can do that whenever.
When you declare a TIF,
And I also don't wanna scare anybody. Let's say we wake up tomorrow and one of these, there's a Walmart plopped in there. We would have time, even if it showed up tomorrow, to get it all in time. So I don't want you to be alarmed and think, oh my God, we've gotta get this right. Because the EDA doesn't start a clock. The EDA is forever, or you could pull it out, but you always are part of the EDA. And the TIF district, we do have time to create it, even if we could get caught sleeping.
Because, why is that? Because it's 1 year tax in arrears?
Because it takes the assessor a period of time, it's based on the tax rate at the start of the year. As long as you get it done before it gets reassessed, you're good.
Okay.
So,
So even if we did it this year, you're gonna see very little revenue in 2023, and you'll see the full revenue in 2024, basically,
yes, yeah,
for projections.
correct.
And you can do the 4 meetings, special meetings really fast too.
If push comes to shove, you can crank it through in about 30 days with the public hearing notices and things
Well,
like
we just won't issue permits.
In fact, generally what happens is it turns out that the redevelopment commissions are prodding the assessor to hurry up with the assessment to get it up, because it's happened to my other clients. The assessor has not gotten an assessment done during the next calendar year, and so there's no TIF money realized until a year later than they thought. So, and he's very good if you bring it to his attention, but sometimes a little prodding, a reminder, and he's very helpful in that. Another thing that the assessor will do that, Scott mentioned utilities being run out here. A TIF financing deal, an incentive deal, could be used to pay for that to go out there.
Yeah, that's what I was,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, so, it's,
It almost seemed like timing would be good if you're doing all that work on 67, with all that, and other TIF money increasing year 2024. Seemed like the timing would be good timing, to be able to get some
To
ideals.
get our
and
money, yeah, get
Then
some
you can project
revenue
for
back.
24, 25, and 26 of what your TIF's gonna generate.
Is that right off our timeline that we'll start generating a little more TIF revenue in 2024?
you have a debt rolling off that
Yeah.
year, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, so you'll have a lot more to play with.
okay.
We don't have anything until 2024.
Well, what last half of last year, we started getting revenue from it. But we had been paying already, it's a TIF, it's not a TIF abatement, it is a hybrid TIF abatement. So basically, could you explain a TIF abatement, then I'll explain what happened at the law?
Well, you can have a tax abatement and a TIF at the same time. And as the abatement rolls off, 90, 80, 70, 60, there's more and more taxes paid, and you get stepped up amount you receive each year. As they pay more taxes, you receive more TIF. So you can have them both at the same time. Generally, if you're gonna grant somebody a TIF district, you can make them sign a commitment, no abatements. So you'll have that money come in. But you can, if the perfect thing comes down the track, you could say, yeah, we'll give you some TIF financing, which would not be significant until later in that 10-year period and after. But we'll also let you abate the taxes for 10 years. So a lot of negotiating. You need a good negotiator for the town that has a knowledge of this to work with these developers, and they're used to it. But you can be very competitive with it, and based on how desirable the project is and how bad you want them there.
So the way, this is not a TIF financing or a TIF abatement, but it smells like it. So what happened at the Wellness Center, the town agreed to make payments, subsidy payments to the Wellness Center. But then we also TIF'd it. So the revenue from the TIF is this, but then the town pays out this much. And that was enough to make it happen for them, make it profitable.
It was a very creative, involved deal.
Very creative.
Yeah.
And so it's an odd animal. What I just noticed, I missed a couple of little tiny parcels that are really hard to see. But if you look where 36 comes into 67, there where behind, it would be behind the Taco Bell, behind the auto parts store. Because of the 67 project enhancement, I think we're gonna end up probably, has spurred us to get serious about doing I'll call it a frontage road, but it's a road that would parallel behind. You take Hayden Way and extend it down to where Central Way comes in at the O'Reilly's auto body shop. We are gonna go ahead. Oh, you need to know about this. I forgot. I need to tell you this. So MCOG came to us and said that they would pay for 80% of the design for a trail that would basically, where 36 comes into 67, there's a drainage ditch, and they can't, is there a way to zoom in? And then you'll have to shift it that way. So we were, part of the Pendleton part of the 67 project was to have a trail along 67 that would go right in front of Jimmy's Dairy Bar, right? Go through on your property. And then, no wait, it would stop at Water Street, so it wouldn't reach your property. But then we started looking at that, and then we said, this is sort of silly, because what little kid is gonna walk up to Water Street and then turn down Water Street and head to the pool or whatever? So we thought, well, we've got this legal drainage easement that nothing can be built on anyway. Why don't we build a trail along that? Because it's 30 feet plus or minus on either side. So we add a trail, so the trail would come up along on the west side of 67, hits right there at Pizza Hut, goes past Pizza Hut, and then would turn immediately and head to the back towards Hayden Way, the west leg of Hayden Way, and then parallel along Hayden Way until it hits Water Street. MCOG came to us and said, we'll pay you, we'll pay for 80% of that, of the design. That makes it eligible for federal funds later. Town, you have to cough up 24,000. So I went ahead and did that because of the time running out. Do they need to approve that? I guess, because we're gonna use TIF money to pay for that design.
Yes.
Okay, so we probably need to do that tonight. Is it okay because it's not on the agenda?
Yeah, they can deviate from their agenda by majority vote.
Okay.
And we have enough money to do that?
Yeah, you've got, because one of the things with the impact fees coming in, we were gonna use your, TIF money. And we may, yeah, actually, let's hold off on it, cause we may decide to actually use the impact money. Because what's our worst intersection? Water Street and 67, we get pedestrian traffic off of there, then it's actually, more conducive to do that, to get that trail off of that. Cause all we were doing, we're actually adding a heavier pedestrian, in argument, you'd say you're adding a heavier pedestrian traffic flow to an intersection that's already failing. And that intersection is listed as a fee, as a project that impact fees could pay for. So let's hold off on that.
I'd like to have a written resolution anyway on stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So, I lost my train of thought. So anyway, if that trail goes in, it also now it gives reason that we ought to just go ahead and connect that frontage road along there. And that frontage road would look, so this is Pizza Hut. I wish, can we turn the aerial photo on? That's, yeah, or just turn off the zoning. Okay, so this is where the drainage easement runs. This is where the drainage easement runs, right through here, right? So the trail would come up like this, make a turn, instead of continuing on up to here, turns into here, and then would parallel this. And then it would make only sense, and make this parcel, which is owned by the same Pizza Hut company. If we add this frontage road, all right, this keeps traffic off at our bad intersection, right? It gives commercial traffic here to the back, and then makes this parcel usable for commercial use also.
The frontage road comes out to
The frontage
State
road, how
Street?
it would come out here, down here, right where Central Way is. Can you scroll up a little bit? So it would, okay, it would come in through here or through here in the future. Or maybe we stop right here, but because of what's happening on 67, there's a domino effect, and we've got to solve it. It's not an easy solution engineering wise, but it makes it very likely that eventually we're gonna have to do something back there. But step one will be to put that trail in. The trail would go there, and there's plenty of, the right of way is only 30 feet, but there is plenty of space for this to happen, and it'll enhance the values of those properties along that trail.
Agreed.
But anyway, that's why that little parcel was marked, and then the other one as it goes out. The State Street goes out. It's just the parcel that's left. It's a residential parcel, so probably we need to take that off. What happens if we do designate a parcel that's residential?
Doesn't hurt you.
Okay. Have I made it muddy? Did I make the water muddy?
Questions?
Not right now.
No, I think it's good. Lynn, anything from you?
No questions. Thank you.
I think it's a good plan.
Yeah, so, I mean, all we're asking now is just mull this over, start to maybe think about where else we should do it, where should we subtract and not do it. Remember, we captured the whole parcel, even though just the frontage may be all that's really what we wanna use for TIF, but we do have to TIF the parcel as a whole, and then if it ever develops and gets chopped up, then we would probably take it off.
Very good. Anything else on this?
Nope.
All right. Anything else from anybody in general? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
I second.
We got a second from Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.